Hey, my name's Alex McWhorter, and this is my air transportation presentation. So to start off, I'm going to be giving a summary of what we're going over today. We're talking about switching from airline travel to on-demand travel. We believe the company is utilizing a lot of time and resources that it doesn't need to on airline travel. Employees are having to spend a lot of time getting to the airport, going through security, going through layovers, getting to their destination at a large city, and then using, in a lot of cases, using a rental car to get to the smaller cities where our site is located at. This costs the company in two ways: time and money. And what I mean by saving time here is that these employees are salaried. It actually, it costs them amount per hour to operate in these areas, and we're losing a lot of time with that. We're also having to spend a lot on hotels because these individuals are only able to get a flight like the next day, and they then must stay at a hotel, incurring even more costs. So to cure this problem, we're going to recommend on-demand travel. And this is going to help with all of these issues I have just explained. We're going to demonstrate how much time will be saved utilizing on-demand travel, demonstrate the strengths of different aircraft available, highlight which aircraft is best suited for the company based on its value, and determine the cost each aircraft will incur. So first, we're just going to look at how much time we're going to be saving by switching to on-demand travel. And if you look at the chart in the bottom left, airlines versus on-demand travel hours, you see we're saving an exponential amount of time. It's three times more effective to use on-demand than the airlines. And you can see the amount of overnight stays shrink drastically with on-demand travel. And this is fairly huge as it also allows us to expand. If our company wants to continue to expand, we need to rely more of an on-demand system than airlines, or else these time wastes that we're experiencing and the cost associated with it will keep rising and rising with every new site we acquire. And that's one of the reasons we're recommending on-demand. Then we look at market analysis. So let's take a look at the advantages and disadvantages of the planes we have here. So as far as range is concerned, the Citation CJ4 has the best range out of all the aircraft we have available. The Pilatus has the most cabin volume. The Learjet is actually our fastest aircraft, shortly followed by the Citation. As far as payload is concerned, the Learjet is the highest, and what I mean by payload is how much weight can it take with max fuel as well. And this is something to consider if you want to fly with a lot of employees, a lot of bags, and you want to go near a long flight, and you don't want to stop for fuel, which would cost time, then the Learjet would have your highest payload. Now, when we look at utilization hours, the jets use less hours than the turboprops. So the TBM and the Pilatus are turboprops, the CJ4 and the Learjet are jets. What this really means is that the turboprops will be cheaper to operate but slower, meaning their aircraft utilization hours are higher. The jets, however, will be much faster but and with more range, but a little more expensive to operate, which is what we see in the 300 nautical mile cost. When you look over there, you can see that the jets are more expensive to operate for 300 nautical miles than the turboprops, and that's just simply because the turboprops are more cost efficient. Now, looking at what we believe to be high value for the company is cabin volume, payload with max fuel, cost per 300 nautical miles, and maintenance costs. So we look at cabin volume. The Pilatus and the CJ4 are the higher end of that, as on the higher end of that spectrum, and then third Learjet, fourth TBM. So the payload with max fuel, we got the Learjet, followed by the CJ4 and then the Pilatus, which I think it's important to note here that the Pilatus has quite a lot of payload, can carry a lot of weight for the kind of cost it incurs. And cost per 300 nautical mile is, of course, the jet versus the turboprops. And just we want the company to be aware that with the jet, you are going faster, but it's going to cost you a little more. And then maintenance cost of TBM is very low on the maintenance end. And after looking further into the TBM, we're not going to recommend this for the company, even though it is the cheapest to maintain. So if cost is a huge factor here, that's something to consider. But it also doesn't carry a whole lot of weight at max fuel, which is going to be a problem for long range flights. And then when we look at the totals from left to right, we have the TBM 930, Learjet 35 Alpha, the Pilatus PC-12, and the CJ4. So the CJ and the Pilatus are neck and neck there, shortly followed by TBM, and at the bottom the Learjet. However, we don't believe the totals really do the Learjet justice. We think the Learjet is a great option because it is not nearly as expensive as a Citation, but has all the benefits of a jet. However, if cost is a huge concern, we can go with the Pilatus, which is a great value for its cost point. Then we're going to look at cost of operation. Speaking of cost point, Pilatus is going to be the cheapest to operate, but it's going to be a little slower than the Learjet, and the Learjet has a reasonable expense for the speed and payload. So let's break each one down. The chart on the bottom left there, you're looking at blue yearly fixed costs and the red estimated yearly costs. So the fixed cost is just something that the plane's going to incur by simply sitting in a hangar, and the estimated yearly cost is based on the hours of utilization predicted for each aircraft. This is how much it's going to cost us bottom line per year. You can see the Citation CJ4 is by far the highest, which is it's quite expensive. It has great range. It moves quickly, can carry a lot of passengers. It's luxurious, but it is also by far the most expensive. Something to be thinking about. The Pilatus PC-12 is actually the cheapest, even cheaper than TBM here, which is really incredible for the aircraft it is and what it can provide. And then you have the Learjet, which is only slightly more expensive than the Pilatus. However, it does have that advantage of moving much quicker, saving even more time, and having a slightly higher payload, which is important. So the hours of utilization for the jets are going to be lower than the turboprops, obviously. And then when we look at comparing our options, so you may be thinking, why would we go on demand when we could simply go charter? Well, that's a great question to ask, and this is why I'm going to cover this. So the TBM, the Pilatus, and the Learjet are significantly cheaper than charter. Citation is only slightly cheaper. So even with such an expensive aircraft, it is still cheaper to go with a Citation CJ4 than charter. Charter is really not at all a cost-efficient mode of transportation for the amount of time we are going to be spending traveling through the air and utilizing our aircraft. And so that's kind of what we've got here, and we're looking at operating structure next. And the operating structure for the aircraft department that I am recommending is that we have a department manager who is going to be creating standard operating procedures, flight operation manuals, things of that nature, and overseeing the general operations of the flight department, making sure everything's going to be run the way the company would run it. Below them, we would have a chief pilot who not only would be there at an administrative capacity, but would also be there to see if our standard operating procedures are having the effect we want, and to make sure the flight operations manual makes sense. They will also be flying from time to time with the aircraft to make sure that the culture we want to instill in our pilots and our company is being represented correctly. Then below the chief pilot, we have schedulers. Schedulers obviously are needed so that we can schedule the pilots. They have enough downtime, enough time to rest, and things of that nature. And then, of course, we have the pilots and mechanics who would be responsible for maintaining and operating the aircraft we have. I'd like to thank all of you for listening, and I hope you all have a good rest of your day.